Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, March the 28th, 2017. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week. As always, before we get going, let me remind you all the ways which you can interact and contribute to the show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Hashtag itspotlight411 is the hashtag that you want to use for anything you tweet regarding our show. You want to, I've got echo effect here. I just click on this, sir. There you go. Okay. Wow, that was bad. Stupid of me. Sorry about that, folks. Clicked on the wrong page here. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 401 on Facebook and make sure that you like that fan page once you're on it. All right, so we're on the air late. Couple of things. I had a work thing. We had an unexpected dinner deal going on tonight, which I wasn't aware of until I got home, among other things. And then, I'm going to take a page out of my co-host book and say that I had an issue I had to deal with, and I'm sure he can familiarize himself with that issue because he does it all the time. That's all I'll say. I think you know what I mean, but yeah.
Poop.
Pretty much. I hate to be gross, but I'll just be honest, pretty much. But yeah, that's what was going on. Right when I was about to start, I pretty much had to do that, and I couldn't wait. So, but we were already going to be late anyway because it was one thing after the other tonight. So, thankfully, we got only two things on the agenda tonight. We don't have to do wrestling because we're going to do that on Thursday because this Thursday is an all wrestling show. Previewing WWE's WrestleMania pay-per-view, the biggest pay-per-view of the year. We'll be doing that pretty much. That's pretty much all we will be doing on Thursday. So you can look forward to that. So again, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to submit in, you can do that either before the show or during the show on Thursday. So that's what's coming up on Thursday. Now tonight we're going to do a really just basically what we've been doing the last couple of weeks on Tuesdays. Quick box office beat, and then we're going to do NCAA Tournament. We're not going to do anything else from sports. I know we got baseball starting this weekend, all that stuff. We'll do a baseball preview as we get further into the season. We'll do more of that. Nothing else really that we have to cover anyway. And I was hoping to do entertainment news this week, but we just don't have the time. So we're just going to keep it to a brief box office beat and then NCAA Tournament. Wrestling will be for Thursday. Maybe I'll give Mike a brief moment, do some TV highlights. Fine, we can do it quick. But other than that, that's pretty much going to be it tonight. And again, Thursday, WrestleMania 33 preview. That's going to, and of course, we'll do questions and comments from the fans related to wrestling. That will be our show on Thursday. Next week, obviously, we'll wrap up our discussion of the college basketball season and the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about the Final Four, all that stuff. We'll talk brackets. We'll go back at how we did. All that on next week, on Tuesday primarily. But we'll be doing some other things too. There's a couple of things we're going to be doing. I'm not going to get into them tonight because I'm in the interest of time. I don't want to get crazy about previewing what's going to be going on. We'll talk more about that all on Thursday. But there are some different things we're going to be doing next week, so I'll get more into those on Thursday. We'll be doing two shows. I know last week I kind of danced around it a little bit. I wasn't sure if we were, but we will be doing two shows next week, so be aware of that. Okay, so I want to, of course, officially welcome my co-host on. Mike, you're in the spotlight.
You are so
I
late.
am so late. We've documented that with me. Not very happy about it either. But anyway, so with that being said, as I said, we're going to start off with a brief box office beat and then jump into the tournament. And that's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to roll tonight. And we don't have many games to talk about, so that's going to help out a little bit tonight. All right, so box office. Well, okay, so we went into the weekend. I mentioned it, saying that we pretty much figured that there's going to be a number one repeat with Beauty and the Beast. It was just a matter of how much it made. It was tracking in that direction. I think even if it wasn't tracking in that direction, many of us would have assumed that was going to be the case anyway. It was, and the movie did extremely well. It was really how well Beauty and the Beast was going to do, and how much would that hurt the other films that not only going to be released, but that were already still in play. If you're a holdover that was already doing Beauty and the Beast, you weren't so worried. But But if you were a new film, primarily, you were probably more worried than one of the films that was still out was. So to that end, you look at the numbers last week. And obviously, Beauty and the Beast was a repeat number one. It came in with. I'm waiting for my totals to appear. That's why I'm stalling. Sorry, because I'm on two different search engines. Oh yeah, right here. All right, here we go. So, really, the theme you had this past weekend was family movies. Beauty and the Beast did well. Power Rangers opened big. We've seen that theme this month, but their prime brand family movies. These are what vehicles behind them, either nostalgia or Disney, or and when you have that behind, it really gives you a big leg up on the competition. So that helps. But we knew Beauty and the Beast was probably going to be number one again, and it did that very well. 90.4 million, a very good hold, a 48.3% drop off, very good hold. So when you see that, you're thinking, well, what in the world is Power Rangers going to do? What is Life going to do? Which many people were expecting Life to do much. What's Chips going to do? Which, again, many people weren't expecting much out of. And holdovers like Kong and Logan and Get Out, they've already done well enough. You just make what you can. Well, Power Rangers did exceptionally well, 40.3 million for a franchise that's been kind of really, I won't say out of relevancy because it's still very popular with kids, but for, mainstream wise, I don't think it's as popular as it was in the 90s. So to see it do this, obviously it built into some nostalgia, but to do 40.3 million when critics were kind of panning, it's pretty good. So very good opening weekend there. And then you have Kong hold up well, dropping from second to third, 14.6 million, a 47% drop out, which is very good considering the competition it's facing now. And one of the other new releases, Life, Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal's new film. People are going to look at the 12.5 million it made in its opening weekend. It's got $58 million budget, which is very low for a space movie, sci-fi movie. But still, people are going to look at that 12.5 and go, "Wow, that's terrible." But considering the competition, it's not bad. Ultimately, it's going to end up being a failure. It's only made 29.3 million worldwide. I mean, it's going to be a failure, but at the same time, when you look at it, considering the competition, the fact it did that well is kind of astounding, to be honest. It might very well be that the benefits of Ryan Reynolds and drawing factor of Ryan Reynolds. Coming in fifth, dropping from third, was Logan, 10.3 million, a very good 42% drop off, and then Get Out continued to hold extremely well. 34% drop off, 8.8 million, dropping from fourth to sixth. So Get Out pretty much has had the best hold of any movie this year, and obviously it's been the biggest surprise of the year. And then the other new release last weekend, which was Chips, debuted in seventh with $7.7 million. Again, it is a $25 million budget movie, so it's not going to be too much of a loss. The fact that it's only at 10.1 million worldwide. The fact of the matter is, this movie was supposed to be released in August. Ultimately, it was decided it would be moved to March, and that's a decision that's forever going to haunt this movie. It should have been left alone. It wasn't, and that's really what killed it. Because would it have been a huge hit? I don't know. We never will know. I don't think so, but it probably would have at least made its budget back. And going up against what it's going up against, I mean, you got quite a few behemoths here. Beauty and the Beast, Power Rangers, Kong, Logan, Get Out have all been doing exceptional business over the last few weeks. And, record-breaking business. And we talked about this month of March being this huge record-breaking month. And you're seeing that in the numbers, what Beauty and the Beast is doing, what Logan's done, what Get Out going into March has done. And then Kong adding to it has done pretty well as well. So, to open a movie this month with this kind of competition, you really had to feel good about it. And I don't think they ever felt good about Chips. And just like I don't feel like the people behind Life felt good about it. So to release these two movies when you did was kind of an asinine decision. And it's even more ridiculous when you had an August release date and you moved it into this Power month. But nonetheless, very not a good situation for Chips, not a good situation for Life. They're lucky they made what they did. But on the flip side, the main holdovers, Kong, Logan, and Get Out continue to do very good business, and Power Rangers did very good business in its first weekend. That's a good sign for the franchise. They want to make 6 movies. They're off and running. And of course, Beauty and the Beast is in a class of its own with what it's been doing. It's already over $500 million, and it's well on its way to $1 billion. No doubt about that. So all in all, a very good weekend at the box office. For the most part, everything either did well or about what you thought it would do or exceeded expectations. A couple of new releases did bad, but we thought they would. So nothing shocking there. So you take what you got from last weekend, you end up you carry it over into, if you're the box office, try to carry this momentum over into the final weekend of March. To carry this into April. This month has kind of been like a summer movie month, and this weekend's going to kind of be like a summer movie weekend again. You got 2 major releases, both of which are expected to do very well. They're very high concept. And as you head into April, you're talking about kids going on spring break and Easter. You always have an animated film. You have that, and then you also have a sci-fi action film that's got some controversy, but might not have enough to really hurt it. And that's been kind of a thing. We've had a lot of controversies, but movies with controversy that really haven't been hurt by it lately. But the question, of course, is going to be much like last weekend. With the competition out there, with Beauty and the Beast out there, and Power Rangers, and all, what can these new movies do? Can they draw big numbers in this market right now? That's going to be the big question as you go into this weekend, the final weekend of March, if you close out this record-breaking month. So you got 2 big releases. The biggest release is The Boss Baby, an animated film from Fox, opening in 3,700 theaters. Obviously PG. It's already made $17.5 million overseas, so it's off and running. Alec Baldwin, Steve Buscemi, and Lisa Kudrow lend their voices to the film. It's been very well marketed. Family movies have done exceptionally well. Do you wonder if maybe that will hurt this movie a little bit? It's a possibility. I don't know. I do think it'll do well enough. I'm thinking maybe 30, 35 minutes. I can't see it doing more than that because I think Beauty and the Beast is going to continue to hold well and be right there at that $30 to $40 million mark. So that could probably hurt Boss Baby a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. Then you have Ghost in the Shell, a sci-fi action film from Paramount, opening in 3,200 theaters, starring Scarlett Johansson, Michael Pitt, and a host of really unknowns. It's PG-13. There's obviously been some controversy about Scarlett Johansson being in the lead role, but she obviously has drawing power, so you wonder if that's going to play a role at all. I'm worried about this movie. I'm not worried about making money. I think it could easily get 20 million, even in this market right now, even with the competition right now, because Logan's dropped off enough, Kong's dropped off enough, where I think that even if they do decent enough business, I don't think they're going to hurt Ghost in the Shell, and that's really the 2 movies that would probably hurt it. I wouldn't say Power Rangers because that's skewing younger. Well, and by younger, I mean like school age, like, not even high school younger. So I do think this movie can eke out at least 20 million. Now, that probably wouldn't be seen as a very good thing. So it depends on which way you look at it here. I think Beauty and the Beast is going to end up #1 this weekend. I think it's going to be #1, like 35 to 40 million. The only movie that I think will come close to catching it is Boss Baby. I think Boss Baby is going to be in that 30, 32, $33 million range. If Beauty and the Beast does a little less than expected, then Boss Baby could take #1, but I don't feel good enough about that to say that. So I think Beauty and the Beast takes #1, Boss Baby takes 2, Ghost in the Shell probably takes 3. I'm thinking 20 million. I could see it maybe on the high end going 25. I just don't see it going more than that. I don't. And then after that, I think you'll see Power Rangers around maybe 13, 14, 15 million, because it's probably gonna be probably a very front-loaded movie. And then after that, you'll see Kong around 9, 10 million. Life will drop below 5 million for sure. As will Chips. So you'll probably see Kong around 9, 10 million. Get Out and Logan around 6, 7 million, and then everything else be under 5 million is probably what you're looking at for this weekend. So I think Beauty and the Beast is going to three-peat. Boss Baby would probably be the biggest threat to them unless Ghost in the Shell really shocks everybody. And that's the way I see it happen. That's why I see this weekend. I see a three-peat for Beauty and the Beast. Mike, any thoughts?
Power Rangers wasn't just because of the nostalgia. They also had from the LGBTQ plus community. They made one of the Power Rangers gay.
Well, yeah, that helps.
I imagine that helped much more than Disney saying, "Hey, LeFou's gay." There's that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Right.
It was actually they presented it as a more matter of fact thing, I think, and a lot of people love that. I don't know. Plus, we haven't had a Power Rangers movie since 1994. There's a market on that. Other than that, no, because we're trying to make up time for you taking a giant shit.
That wasn't the reason, so stop. It was more because I had an unexpected dinner thing go on.
Sit in a giant shit.
Yeah. All right. So, with that being said, Mike, would you like to take the opportunity? Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. So that's our box office beat for this week. Next week, we got two big releases. One smaller, but still considered big release. A lot of people consider it a low weekend. Before the Fate of the Furious. I think you can consider it that. It's probably going to be more of a holdover weekend. I don't know if I'd call it a low. I think it'll be a decent weekend, but still, it's going to be a quieter weekend than we've been seeing over the last month. So, as we enter April and head towards Easter, so we'll talk more about that, of course, next week. All right, Mike, would you like to give any TV highlights? If you'd like to, you can. It's up to you.
I will do it fairly quickly because, well, there's that. Okay, start off with the DC people. The last episode I saw was the music episode for Flash and Supergirl. The music episode for Flash was really good. To include the John Barrowman, Victor Garber, and Jesse L. Martin single. And friggin' tastic. They didn't use Music Meister a whole lot. That's a little disappointing. But Darren Criss was great. Everybody was great. Even the Supergirl stuff wasn't total shit. So, yeah. Flash was worth watching, and the soundtrack is on iTunes and Google Play and Spotify or wherever the hell you download music. So take a listen to that, preview some of the songs. Totally worth it. Arrow was super dark this week. Arrow was super dark and super intense. And it was an intriguing piece of television this week, to the point where Oliver is now completely broken, not spoiling what happens. So, but hey, he's going to be the Green Arrow for at least another season, so spoiler alert. So, Legends of Tomorrow I'm caught up on. Finally, this last episode. Hey, the Legends of Tomorrow, some of the most idiot-proof plot points. But somehow they forget. And so they get forced into coming up with the dumbest fucking reasons for the plot. And the IWD is in the middle of the battlefield. Oh. Okay, I'm not spoiling what this item is. Oh, well, we have to go in the middle of this battle, notoriously violent battle, to go retrieve this item. And we have to create a drama by stop the war. Alternatively, you have a time ship travel through time. On Earth, if you have a time ship, do you need to go right in the middle of the most violent conflict in one of the most violent conflicts in modern European history? you can quite literally time jump to, I don't know, let's say 10 or 15 or 20 years before that time, where the item is literally still there. It's just nobody is exchanging gunfire. Idiot proof. Number 2, I'm going to spoil this little part. It's against the team when Captain Cold comes back, and because he felt like the team didn't trust or respect him, team didn't trust or essentially respect him, even though he has saved their lives countless times and was easily the most interesting part of every episode this season. He had to say was, Mick, we trust you with our lives. We do respect you. And to show you that we trust you, we are handing you the spear to protect it. Have this relationship with Snart, part of our family. You address the issue immediately, and you show him that that he is trusted, even though he is Mick Rory, the most violent member of the team. You could have done an awful lot. Instead, what they do is they all pretty much turn against Mick Rory, essentially. And then when it comes time, well, what happens? He turns against the team and takes the spear. My God! Who saw that coming? What the fuck? And then they all sat around moping like, oh, man, I can't believe Mick did that to us. We should have treated him with just a little bit more respect. Well, you fucking think? And then they're like, hey, well, at least they can't spear yet because they need the book to use a spear. And what the fuck happens? And Malcolm Merlin, who is missing the entire episode, comes walking in with the fucking book they needed. Like, who is writing this show for you? Oh, the Legends of Tomorrow came out as so stupid. Things like they came off as so dumb. But hey, Wentworth Miller was in it, so there's a plus. There's a giant plus. Speechless was really, really good. And even though the last week's Speechless, the current week's Speechless is rerun. But they're rerunning one of the good episodes, so well, I mean they're all good, but it's neither here nor there. NBC has a new comedy out, half hour. It's called Trial and Error. Stars John Lithgow. I've seen the first 3 episodes, and it is one of those surrealist comedies, legitimately funny. It is legitimately laugh out loud funny, but it is so surreal. Ridiculous. There is literally only one sane man in town. I highly recommend Error. I hope NBC brings it back. It's been so good. Really good. So, Trial and Error. This is a show I recommend you watch. Designated Survivor came back. Haven't seen it. I'm behind on purpose. I'm not in the mood to watch anything political at the moment. But I don't know. Hearing good things. People are alive or dead. Who knows? Who knows, indeed. Other than that, for my television watching, so my television highlights were all of the DC shows with the exception of DC's Legends with Tomorrow. Oh, I keep forgetting to mention this. Now, Legion. Holy crap. Episodes are going to be intense as fuck. I highly recommend Legion. If I don't even know how you're going to even follow it along if you jump into it at this point, but just watch it. It's really
Good show. It's a good show.
Dan Stevens is out of his mind crazy good in this show. And he got to use his native British accent in this latest episode, so it was worth it. There.
Okay. For I pretty much watch Walking Dead and college basketball this week. But now that basketball is winding down, I think I'm going to have more time to catch up on some things. I got a lot of stuff to catch up on. I haven't been recommending Walking Dead because it's basically been filler until this week. But I got a feeling I'll be recommending it this coming week. So, all right. So Mike gave us some TV highlights. Now we're going to jump to sports and to the NCAA tournament. We have our Final Four, and it's probably let me say this first because I mentioned this on Twitter. This is one of the most unique, strange, unconventional Final Fours that I can remember. And in a way, it reminds me a lot of 2000 in a way. But, in this case, you have three teams that are essentially new. I know Oregon's been there, but it's 1939. So basically, it's new. It's when the damn thing started, to be honest. And you got South Carolina, who's never been there. And you got Gonzaga, who's never been there. And then you got North Carolina, who's been there more than any other team. I mean, that practically writes itself. It's such a weird dynamic there. But, it's an interesting Final Four because I think, first of all, I think we're going to get great games. And I hope we do. I hope that this Final Four is good because this tournament has not been. Yes, they're having good games. Yes, there have been entertaining moments. That Carolina-Kentucky game on Sunday will be looked at as one of the best games in the NCAA tournament in history. It was a great game. And that final minute was crazy good. I don't care if you're not even a fan of those teams. It was, despite what the officials tried to do to that game, in that last minute, it was a thing of beauty. That was NCAA tournament and college basketball at its best. It was brilliant. Great to watch. There's been great moments. There's been, you had the one buzzer beater with Florida, Wisconsin, which is another great game on Friday night. You've had entertaining moments, but you also have had a tournament that, while you had a few upsets here and there, you never really. I mean, I guess South Carolina being Duke quantifies a little bit. I mean, you want to call the Villanova upset one, you can maybe. But really, Mike knows what I'm talking about. Last year in this tournament, we saw when Middle Tennessee State beat Michigan State. That was our jaws dropped. Over the years, I remember, was it Southern Illinois or something beating Kansas in the second round? You didn't have a jaw dropper, to be honest. You had a couple you were a little shocked, a little surprised, but there wasn't a jaw dropper. There wasn't that shocking moment that kind of careened everything out of control. Like, oh yeah, your brackets were busted. You had enough go on in that second round to bust brackets all over the place. Let's be honest here. But at the same time, there wasn't that moment where you're like, wow, I can't believe I just watched that happen. It was, we can go back to Selection Sunday. The seating was terrible. The matchups were terrible. They were worried more about geography and stuff like that and being cute than they were about what they should have been doing. But I'm not going to belabor that point. And, that's all part of it. The other part of it, too, is the officiating, which has been one of the worst I've ever seen in the NCAA tournament. I mentioned this last week. 2 years ago, I felt like it was the worst. This year, I feel like it has trumped that. And that's not to say that there's never been bad officiating. There have been we have seen some awful, awful calls. We mentioned them on this show. I think there's been worse calls than there have been this year. But I think I've never seen such consistency as far as poor officiating goes in this tournament as I have this year. It's not just about one call. It's about a bevy of bad officiating performances throughout this entire tournament so far. And that's taken away from a lot of the game. It almost ruined the UNC-Kentucky game on Sunday. It almost did. Thankfully, the players took over and kind of changed that dynamic, but it almost did ruin it. And it's a shame. And I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. I think these refs, I think these officials need to be re-educated on what a foul is. I think they need to be re-educated on the game itself. I think there's a significant problem. 2 years ago, I felt like the tournament was being hurt by officiating. Last year, I don't think it was. They got lucky. But this year, it's happening again. So 2 out of the last 3 years, officiating in the tournament has been terrible. And I think something needs to be done about that in the offseason. Hopefully it will be. But going back to the games, you know, you look at Thursday, a little rough. You know, wasn't a lot going on. I mean, decent enough games. I will not. I won't really question quality of play throughout this entire tournament. I think the quality of play has been okay. I mean, the shot clock thing has really helped a little bit in that way. But you know, again, officiating has hurt in spots, and you know that kind of thing, and matchups have been hurt in spots. But you know, when you look back on it, you look back on Thursday, you look back on the start of the Sweet 16. I'm pulling up my stats here because I got notes here to look at. Here we go. You know, you had a good game between West Virginia and Gonzaga, which Gonzaga was just pure lucky to get out with the game. And I think the fundamental differences in that game was West Virginia. Gonzaga has a post player that's incredibly hard to guard, and West Virginia's one problem all year was you know, yeah, they can dominate you in the paint, but if they find somebody that matches up well with them in the paint, if you have a dominant post player, you can keep up with them, and you can really more or less they get beat when that happens, and that's what happened with Kansas against them. They'll be close, but if you have a dominant post player, Kansas has Josh Jackson, Gonzaga has Ranowski. You know, if you have somebody like that to compete with them in the paint, then you take away their strongest advantage, which is the paint, whether it's on the offensive or defensive end. And Gonzaga has that, and that's ultimately what decided the game. They eke out a win over West Virginia. Purdue was nowhere near as good as Kansas. We knew that. The only chance that they had was that if their defense could contain Josh Jackson and also get the Kansas in foul trouble. They did not do that. They have enough bigs to have gotten Kansas in foul trouble. They did not do that. And that to me was the game right there. You know, not only containing Josh Jackson in the paint, but also getting Kansas in foul trouble because they have depth issues. They were not able to do that, and as a result, Kansas blew them out of the building. And then you have the two of the better games of the night: Michigan, Oregon, and Xavier, Arizona. You know, first Michigan, Oregon, which was a brilliant basketball game. I thought I can't complain about neither team. I thought both of them did incredibly well. Since that Oregon made that, you know, that go-ahead layup with a minute left, and that was it. They took care of business, and again, Oregon and Michigan matched up very well. I think we all kind of, and I shouldn't say we overestimated, because whenever you have an injury like Oregon had to Boucher, it does hurt. It's a significant loss. But Oregon, they had some depth. You know, Oregon has a little bit of depth at that position. You know, they didn't try to make it up with one guy. They made up with a bunch of guys. They have Tyler Dorsey. They have Jordan Bell. You know, they found a way to get it done. And they've been getting it done with defense as well as offense, which is not something you're accustomed to thinking with Oregon. So, you know, they made some plays when they had to, and they matched up very well with Michigan. And ultimately, Michigan, whose defense has improved drastically, just didn't make enough plays late. It came down to one basket, really. But if you look back at that game, there were a lot of missed plays on their defense, and their defense was a weak link in why at one point in the season we didn't think they were going to make the NCAA tournament. So Oregon wins that game. They move on. And then in the nightcap game, Arizona-Xavier, a matchup between Sean Miller and his former team. Xavier showed you the reason why they've been a tough out in this tournament, and why at one point we all thought they could be a Final Four team. You know, despite all the injuries they've had this year, they came together in this NCAA tournament. They put together a hell of a run, and they shredded the Arizona defense. Arizona offensively, I thought, was great. Both teams were offensively great, but you don't usually attribute that with Xavier. Xavier's been winning games more or less all year on their defense when they won big games. And here they made it stop late, and with 40 seconds left, they pulled out Sean O'Mara scores, and that's your game. They just kept, basically Xavier did what they've been doing this whole tournament: compete, keep it close. If you're not ahead, keep it close, and see if you can make that play late. And they did that, and they stopped them late to hold it, make it hold up. And Xavier just gets a tough win. And Sean Miller, we said that Sean Miller in Arizona was on this revenge tour, going right back to the Pac-12 tournament. Well, Xavier kind of looked like they were on a revenge tour against Sean Miller. They pulled that win out. Friday, you look at the North Carolina-Butler game. North Carolina, it's the same thing with Kansas and Purdue. North Carolina was just too good. Butler could no way rebound with them, and that showed in that game. But North Carolina just neither was, and nor was Butler as talented, not even close to being as talented as North Carolina. So we all knew that was going to be a bad matchup, and it turned out that way. North Carolina won that game easily. UCLA Kentucky was a game that everybody was looking forward to. It lived up to it. But I think the key to UCLA was this: could they score with Kentucky? Yes. But here's the thing: Kentucky, much like Michigan late in the season, learned how to defend. They started playing good defense. They improved defensively, and that's how they got to where they were. And defensively, they got it done late. And then De'Aaron Fox scoring 39 points obviously helped as well. But defensively, I thought is where Kentucky did so well in this tournament, and that's what shut UCLA down. We knew they could score in Kentucky's league, but we didn't know. But defensively was the key in this game. Kentucky was just able to shut down UCLA, but UCLA was not able to shut down Kentucky. And then you look at the rest of the games. South Carolina, what South Carolina did to Baylor was criminal. I mean, they completely shut down a very good offensive team. Completely shut them down. And South Carolina's been doing that all tournament. They saw what they did to Duke. When South Carolina South Carolina's defense has shown us all year how good it can be. The question was always going to be if they could ever score with their defense, then they were going to be a very tough team to beat. And they've showed that this tournament. And they not only had they shut Baylor down, they held Baylor to 50 points, their worst tournament loss in history. But they also, they held them to 22 points in the first half. But they also were able to score. Thornwell has come into his own in this tournament. He's been a great player all year, but he's really turned it on in this tournament. And they walk away with an easy win, just like they did against Duke. You look at who South Carolina's beaten, they get to the Final Four. It's crazy what they've done. And then the best game of the night, none of us would have guessed this, Wisconsin, Florida, where both teams played extremely well on defense, on offense. Chris Chiozza was great. Kayvon Allen was great. Ethan Happ was great for Wisconsin. Koenig was banged up, but he fought through it. Great game. To come back like Wisconsin did late, and really just Florida winning on that buzzer beater. And I said, one of the things when you're guarding late in the game, you do not want to give up a runner. I don't care if it's from the three. I don't care if it's the mid-range. Don't ever give up a runner. You never want to give up a shot with the player going towards the basket because it's almost a give me. You know what I mean? I know you should not want to give up anything, but it's easy because you don't want to feel like you're giving up a bank shot because that makes it more likely to go in. You rather give up a fadeaway because the chance of him making it is worse, or an something off balance or something. Going away from the basket is what you want. If you're going to give up anything, that's what you're going to try to do. And twice in that game, both Wisconsin and Florida, of course, it was a game winner for Florida in the end. But both those teams gave up a shot running towards the basket in that game. So that's a little bit poor defense there. But anyway, Florida with a great win, one of the best games of the tournament, right next to UNC and Kentucky. Great game, great win. Florida had a great run this year, and Wisconsin has not missed a beat, switching from Bo Ryan to Greg Gard. Saturday, the Final Four games. The Gonzaga-Xavier game wasn't much of a game. It's just a tough matchup. Gonzaga just matches up very well with Xavier. Again, we mentioned Xavier all tournament has, during this great run that they've had where, we were pretty much left for dead back in February, but the reason why they did as well as they have lately is because of their defense. And, their big guys have come up big when they needed to. The big guys they had left. And against Gonzaga, with Minkowski and Williams Goss, they got pros on that team, and they got guys that are hard to guard. And that ultimately sealed the deal for Gonzaga. It wasn't even a close game. Gonzaga just dominated them in the paint, and their efficient offense struck in this game. Gonzaga wins it easily. And the nightcap game, we all thought was going to be an easy Kansas win. I thought it was. That's no disrespect to Oregon. I just think without Boucher, they were going to have a problem. That wasn't the case. Tyler Dorsey had 27, Dylan Brooks 17. We know Oregon can score, but I never thought Oregon could defend like they did in that Kansas game. That was probably the best defensive performance Oregon's ever had under Dana Altman. I mean, that was a brilliant defensive performance by Oregon. To hold Kansas 60 points. Kansas got absolutely nothing. They got into a little bit of foul trouble, which aided. That's something that I thought Purdue should have done on Thursday night. That would have helped them win. They didn't. But ultimately, defense won it for Oregon. You thought offense would. I mean, look, Oregon was going to be able to score Kansas. It's going to come down to stops. Oregon clearly knew that, and they stepped up on defense. And dominant performance by Oregon. And Kansas shocks everybody by dropping it. Not necessarily that they lost. Because against Oregon, I didn't think they would. But the way that they lost, being held to 60 points and being locked down like that on defense is just crazy what happened. So, and you get to Sunday. Look, maybe it's because they saw each other in the SEC. I don't know. Florida came the closest to knocking off South Carolina this month, or in this tournament, I should say. They were able to get. They were able to get shots within the defense, which is not something that a lot of teams had struggled with. They kept it close. To South Carolina, again, defensively, Florida found ways to get around it, which is good. Maybe some other teams can take some notes on that. But the fact is, this South Carolina team is not what they were a month ago. It's not all about the defense. They found ways to score. Thornwell has stepped up, and they have found ways to score now. They are scoring in the 70s now, and if this team scores in the 70s, you ain't going to beat them. Even if you find ways around their defense, they're still going to find enough plays to contain you and hold you down. They're scoring in the 70s, and they're going to hold you down enough to beat you. And that's exactly what they did. Their defense got shredded a little bit by Florida, but at the same time, the fact they scored in the high 70s was plenty with their defense because they're still going to put together enough stops to hold you down enough to win. So, good performance by South Carolina. They move on. An SEC battle there. And then I mentioned the Kentucky-North Carolina game, which was the best game of the tournament. One of the best games ever in the tournament, in my opinion. That last minute was great. The officiating was not. But, Kentucky was in foul trouble, but even still, they kept it close. This ends up being a 2-point North Carolina victory. Ultimately, North Carolina's biggest advantage always in this game, but all year has been experience, but also rebounding. The best rebounding team in the country. And that ultimately was the big factor. Not only making shots, but rebounding and I thought that those opportunities helped. I thought that, Barry, they're going to have to worry about Barry going into Final Four, but I thought those extra opportunities helped, kept it close, kept them in front, and ultimately experienced. They could have, Kentucky ties that game. They could have fallen apart, and they didn't. They have that experience and gets them over the hump, and they came together and they pulled it off. They were unflappable in that final minute, and that's experience and being there, and they were there. So your Final Four: North Carolina, and Oregon, and then you got Gonzaga and South Carolina. South Carolina will be the first game. You're guaranteed to have one team in the championship game that's never been there. It's a shame that they can't both get there, but you're either going to have a battle with Carolinas. You might have, you could always have Gonzaga in North Carolina. You could always have Gonzaga in Oregon. You got Oregon there, 1939 was the last time they've been in. So lots of storylines here. Roy Williams in North Carolina looking for redemption. Gonzaga's never been there. Mark Few has heard it for years. Gonzaga doesn't play a schedule. Gonzaga this, Gonzaga that. Doesn't matter how you got here, who you beat to get you're here. He finally got the monkey off his back to get to the Final Four. And now it's about getting the monkey off your back to win it. And that's really what it's about. Frank Martin's never been there. Obviously, he took it on the chin from a lot of people for going to South Carolina. It's paid off for him. Oregon has been one of those teams that always does well in the tournament, but never quite gets there. And here they are. So lots of compelling theater here. You hope for good games because this tournament needs it. Again, I mentioned this with the college football championship. If you have a good ending, people forget about everything else. So if you can have a good ending here, and I don't think you ever can have a championship game like you did last year, but if you can have a decent couple games here this weekend, people are going to remember it more fondly than if you don't. So as you look at it, I think both games are going to be good. They laid them out the right way on Saturday. It's going to be interesting to see how Gonzaga attacks the South Carolina defense. You have the most efficient offensive team I know they don't play top-tier competition, but still, it's statistically they're the most efficient offensive team versus the best defensive team in this tournament. And if South Carolina scores the way they've been, this game's going to be a close game, and I would be worried about Gonzaga. I've been saying that all tournament, but I would be worried about Gonzaga because I don't know how Gonzaga is going to deal with the physicality and the kind of defense that South Carolina is going to throw at them. They haven't had to deal with anything like that, and they haven't dealt with I know Xavier's physical, but with the injuries and that, they're not the same as they usually would be. This is going to be the most physical, gritty team that that Gonzaga's encountered all season, no doubt. And we'll see how they respond to that. It's going to determine whether they win this basketball game or they don't. I actually like South Carolina to win this game. I do. I think the defense, the fact that they're scoring, I don't think Gonzaga's going to respond favorably at all to what South Carolina's bringing to the table. I don't. The second game, you got North Carolina and Oregon. That's going to be a track meet. That's going to be in the high 80s. Ultimately, though, I like North Carolina because they're the best rebounding team in the country, and those extra opportunities I think are going to be enough. Plus the experience, the leadership. They're on a mission, redemption. So I like Carolina to beat Oregon. I think it'll be a reasonably close game, but I like Carolina to beat Oregon, and that gives us an all Carolina championship game. North Carolina, South Carolina. I think North Carolina has dealt with physical teams. They have the rebounding to deal with a team like South Carolina, get the opportunities. And they have the scores, they have the experience. I like North Carolina in the matchup against South Carolina. I like North Carolina any matchup in this. I think North Carolina's going to win it. But if it's South Carolina, I like North Carolina to win that. So I'm picking North Carolina to come out and win this whole thing this weekend. So hopefully it's good games. Hopefully it's a good Final Four so we can end the season on a good note. That's all you can hope for at this point. Crazy Final Four, unique Final Four, unconventional Final Four, but an interesting one. So, Mike, anything to add?
I have not listened to a word you said over the past 20 minutes. And I honestly don't have an awful lot to say. I didn't really get a chance to watch too many of the games. From what I did watch, though, I was very upset and frustrated with the refereeing. The refereeing has just been god awful throughout this tournament, and we've talked about it a lot, and we're not going to get into that discussion again because at the end of the season, we're going to talk about it again, especially if it fucks up the Final Four. All I'm going to say is there are teams this weekend that got screwed because the refereeing was awful, and if the refereeing was just decent in those games, we would have a drastically different Final Four. Drastically different. I don't think Gonzaga's going to win. I think Carolina's probably got the heavy advantage going in here. Don't discount South Carolina. They could do some really impressive things. And also, well, Oregon's there. North Carolina. You bet on them upsetting North Carolina? Probably not. Happen? Yes. The way I see it, North Carolina is the odds-on favorite to win this. Gonzaga, they deserve to be there? Absolutely not. Are they as deserving of the criticism that we've lobbied at them all season? Absolutely. But it's like when Syracuse made it last year, Syracuse shouldn't have been in this. Syracuse wasn't great. Well, yeah, Syracuse wasn't super great last year, and they made the Final Four. Great for them. Happened for Gonzaga this year. Things broke very right for Gonzaga. Otherwise, they would have lost to West Virginia. So that being said, Gonzaga, things broke right for Gonzaga. That's all I really have to say. I have much to say about the Final Four. It happens. It will happen. It's WrestleMania weekend. More invested in that. It being the most predictable WrestleMania in the last, at least like 5 years.
Okay. All right. So with that, and WrestleMania is something we will cover on Thursday. when we have our next show, our all wrestling show previewing WrestleMania 33. Again, that coming up this Thursday. All right. With that being said, we are done for tonight. Again, I know it was short, but we were late, and we got everything we had to get in tonight, so that's okay. As always, the show might be over. It's not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard. You can send us your feedback. Please do send feedback. Very much appreciated. Very much needed. So make sure you send it. Helps us out very much so. Questions about the show, scheduling the show, reactions, comments, or opinions, things we talked on the show, things we said, topic ideas or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling that you want us to cover. Any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially when it comes to scheduling. Obviously, postponements, delays, etc. can happen. Normally, I make a little bit of an effort to let you all know. Tonight, things were kind of crazy, but, that's the way it goes. But, yeah, you want to make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to get the latest information about the show. And, of course, we post random things on as well. Like this week, I was posting stuff about the tournament. So make sure you follow us on to get all that information, please. You can also if you like to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes or keep up with episodes in general, you have two ways in which to do it. You can stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites, and you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up into tonight's episode. All those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Google Plus and YouTube, and you will have access to those episodes and can stream them anytime you wish. If you're more of a fan of audio podcasts, maybe you want to listen to us on the go, maybe you're interested in older episodes of the show, whatever the case may be, if any of that applies to you, make sure you check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search for In the Spotlight 411 on all of those sites, on both those sites, I should say. And once you do, you'll have access to every episode we've done since the beginning, over the last 7 years, everything from October 2010 when we started on Blog Talk Radio, right on through our talk show run from January 2011, right up until mid-October 2015, and of course, all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015 all the way up into tonight's episode. All those episodes are available for you to listen to anytime you want, to transfer into audio format for your convenience. You can listen to them on the go anytime you want. So maybe you're a longtime fan and want to check out an episode from 4 or 5 years ago, or a new fan wants to check out an episode like that for the first time, or just keep up with current episodes or recent episodes, maybe missed a part of an episode. Any of that applies to you. Maybe you just prefer listening to us, not seeing us. If any of that applies to you, feel free to utilize this resource. Feel free to find us on on Podbean and iTunes, our main host sites. And again, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on those sites, and you can listen to those episodes anytime you wish. So Google Plus and YouTube, if you'd like to stream us, Podbean and iTunes, if you'd like to listen to us on the go, listen to us anytime, or check out older episodes of the show. So 4 ways in which to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes: Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Again, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites. Again, search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites, and you'll be able to do all of that and more. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Time for bed.
Thank myself for another great show. Parents want it back. And thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching, listening to this later, thank you to you as well. Thank you for your patience tonight. I appreciate it. Again, next show, this coming Thursday, which is March the 30th, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Our first Thursday show in about a month. It'll be our last show of March. It'll be an all-wrestling show previewing WrestleMania 33, WWE's biggest pay-per-view of the year. We'll preview all the matches, go over the card. Again, at the end of this, later on in the show, we'll address questions and comments related to wrestling from our fans. So if you'd like to submit questions or comments before the show or during the show, be sure to do that by email, Facebook, and Twitter. And that will be our show on Thursday. I'll get into more about what's going to be going on next week on Thursday, so tune in for more of that. Again, we will be doing 2 shows next week, so just note that, because I was kind of skeptical if we were going to be doing 2. I thought we were going to be doing 1, but now I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing 2, so note that. All right, so with that being said, that is it for tonight. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great Wednesday, and a great Thursday. We'll see you back here for our next show this coming Thursday night, March the 30th, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Until then, Good night, everybody.